Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Today I am so excited to be bringing you my favorite Mafia romances of all time. So this book or video is sponsored by my channel members. If you would like to check out channel memberships, which is a small way to support the channel, but also gets you early access to videos, gets you access to polls where you help choose videos like this, as well as priority answer to comments and things like that. So definitely check that out. So this month, I have been getting a few requests of people wanting another Mafia video. I get it. I love Mafia videos. But I didn't feel like I had anything super new to add recently. I haven't read a ton of Mafia recently, and the stuff that I have read hasn't quite scratched the itch that I want it to. I do have a playlist that has dark romance, and within that dark romance playlist there are about 6 to 10 videos that are all focused on Mafia, so I will link that up there and you can check that out. But for this one I was like, you know what, I haven't made one that is like my definitive favorites before. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna start with a lower tier of romance. So some of these are some that are newer ones, some that are really old favorites, so I don't know if they quite hold up as well as they used to. But we're going to just start with ones that I do pretty easily recommend to people, and I'm still very happy to be associated with. And then once we get through these ones, we're going to talk about my top tier, which for this I have I have 6. I couldn't quite fit it into 5. I have 6 Mafia series / Mafia authors that are my ride or die. Okay, they're the ones that I think if you love Mafia, everyone needs to at least try them, because I think each author brings something very distinct to Mafia. They don't, to me, when I read their books, they feel very distinctly this author's book, and so what they say about Mafia, and when I think of them, I instantly have a certain feeling about those books, and that's those authors for me. So we're going to start with the lower tier ones. This is still encompassing like top reads for me. They're the ones that I would happily reread a lot of these. Some of them even still have some ongoing series in them. Actually, only one of my top series still has like ongoing series. They're all like completed, and I liked how that happened. But we're just going to start with a bit of nostalgia for me, and I know these ones have new covers. I was trying to find where I put my new covers, but I don't know, so we're just going to go with it. But some of the very first Mafia I read was The Marriage Contract. This is the O'Malley family from Katie Robert, and these are getting a new cover. Let me share the new cover of the one of them. They have new names for some of these too, and again, I do have this copy. It was sent to me, but I don't know where it is, so we're rolling with that. Anyway, sorry, oopsie. So yeah, very, very much love this series, and it was really, as I said, some of my introduction to Mafia. So while I don't think it's perfect, I think that throughout this series you get a little bit of taste of all the different kind of Mafia there can be. You know, the enemies to lovers, an arranged marriage, a kidnapping happens, a secret baby, a like really, really enemies to lovers. So you get a little bit of everything within the series that kind of sets the experience for what you can expect going forward with Mafia. So I still really stand by this series, and I am glad that it's getting new life. I do really hope that that Katie Robert will come back to this. She was supposed to do a second generation series, and the first one didn't do well enough, and she's the type of author that she doesn't stick around if it's not working. She moves along, which I understand for a business perspective, but as a fan, I wish that we gave more to this one. Then we have an author that she does still have stuff coming out, and I've actually am really enjoying one of her like series she just finished writing, but I also really loved this series too, which I discovered in 2021 during the Mafia readathon, and that was the Sinner series from Michelle Hurd. Now Michelle Hurd has a ton of Mafia romance. She has a new series that she's starting that's completely unconnected, because she does have like the Monarch Academy and Sinner's world that are all like very interconnected, and this isn't the type of video where I'm going through every book in a series, by the way. This is just me naming what I love. So I'm not going to go in detail about the whole series, but this one is book 3 in the series, and it's my favorite one. It's a bit of a Cinderella retelling in a way. This one I think has the Turkish Mafia involved. Let me see if she said in this one. She might not have said in this one. Yes, the Turkish Mafia, and then our heroine is actually an indentured, well, she's like a domestic slave basically to the villain of our series. And so when our hero like attacks this compound, she is in a situation where it looks like she's protecting someone in there when really she's just trying to get away. So she gets taken captive by our hero, and he very quickly realizes that she is a traumatized, sad woman and has been kept very sheltered, but also been treated very cruelly at the same time. And he falls in love with her, and it's really beautiful. I love this one. But yeah, there's the Sinner series. It starts, I think, with this series starts with Taken by the Sinner. It's been a while. This series starts with, can't you just have it listed for me? Yeah, this one starts with Taken by a Sinner. And then there's Owned by a Sinner, Stolen by a Sinner, Chosen by a Sinner, and Captured by a Sinner. And then there are, like I said, other series that connect. The one I'm currently reading is the Ruthless Royal series, and I just read Brutalize Me, and I really, really liked that one. So this is an author I'm still ongoing reading, but she is like a pretty hit or miss as we go. But love those books. There's something in them for everyone. Okay, another author that I really liked when I was reading her, but now, like, I reread one of them recently, and I don't know if I quite feel about her the way that I did, but I still really like this series. If you like more bonkers heroes, if you like very possessive heroes, there's some kidnapping that happens in this series, and that's going to be Adelaide Forest World. Now, Adelaide Forest is aka Harper L. Woods, and she's really taken off with her fantasy books more than she's doing any of the Adelaide Forest stuff now, which is sad because there's still a 6th book in this one that has not been written yet. There's also Dreams of the Deadly, which kind of connects with this world. And she hasn't written the 2nd book in this duet either, and she kind of left us on a cliffhanger. So her fantasy books took off, and these just kind of got put to the wayside. But this is the Bolandi Crime Syndicate, and this series has some of everything as well. But this series, the heroes are very possessive, as I said, and I'm here for it. So this is a series I still like recommend, but it isn't completed. None of her Mafia series are complete. Well, okay, that's a lie. There's a trilogy series that is, but the series that I loved, see, I didn't really like that one, so that's why selective memory on my part. But the series that I both love from her aren't completed, and we have no idea when they will be, so I'm just kind of left in limbo with them, and it makes me sad. So that's why these don't quite make my top ones. But my favorites in the series is Shielded Wrongs. I really like. This is a single mom, and it also involves like a kidnapping kind of, but I'll leave that to you. I really liked it. All right, then we have a duet that I really do love, and this one almost made it into my like top. However, I did reread When Heroes Fall recently, so I'll just show you. These are my beautiful copies from Mystic Box. When Heroes Fall and When Villains Rise by Gianna Darling. This is a wonderful duet, and I'm not dissing it at all. I'm really not. I love it, but I don't quite feel about it the way that I did when I originally read it. It's not a series that I like think about constantly, whereas the ones when we get into my top ones, like they're always on my mind. Like they're that, like they always take up brain space. If someone says Mafia, I think of these other ones right away. This is a duet that I think is very well done. I love Dante and Elena. Elena's a character that she's seen as almost like a villainess in earlier books written by this author. And then she gets her happy ever after in this one. There also is some misrepresentation of endometriosis in these. And I'm not speaking as I have lived that, but I have a few friends, particularly one friend for sure, but many other friends as well who live with it. And it feels kind of misrepresented in here, used as kind of like a plot point, just to have there be like caretaking scenes in here, but then it's not like followed through with later. It's used as a plot device, and then just kind of she gets fixed of it. And that's not something that can happen with endometriosis. There is no cure for it. So again, that's not stuff that tainted my view when I first read it. It's just through learning and speaking with friends and loved ones about it that it has like changed my view a little of the books. So again, it doesn't degrade the stories, and if you don't have that lived experience, I still highly recommend. Elena ends up being Dante's lawyer when he's accused of some RICO charges, and murder and these things, and she is a part of his law team, and there's just a very antagonistic relationship between them, and like I love it at the same time. So I do still recommend these books. I think you'll have a great damn time with them if you read them, for sure. And then the last series I kind of want to put in this, and this one I struggle with. This one almost made the top as well. But when I look back at the series, number one, this series isn't done. They're actually, the most recent one just came out today. And there really is only one couple in the whole series that really like stands out to me. And that's from book 2. The others really kind of like smush together in my mind, and it's very hard for me to like pick them out. However, this series is extremely comforting to me, and I do enjoy picking one up now and then to reread it. But again, it's usually book 2 that I'm doing it with. But of course, that is the Perfectly Imperfect series from Neva Altaj. Neva Altaj, this was her debut book. Now, if you've only ever read Painted Scars and you didn't love it, I do recommend you give the others a try, because Broken Whispers, these are also shiny, so this is pretty cool. Broken Whispers is my favorite one in the series. This one is a single dad, a mute heroine, and I just love this one. But then there's also, we have Hidden Truths, we have Ruined Secrets. What is that? There is Stolen Touches, Fractured Souls, and Burned Dreams, and then Stolen Lies just came out, and there are still more books planned in this series. So this is definitely still a comfort read. I know the audiobooks are coming out. I think they're up to book 4 that the audiobooks have come out. So this series, as time goes on and as like I reread it more, it may move its way up on the list. But we're about to get into my top 6, and I think you'll agree they are the books that I talk about the most and the ones that I hype the most. But I still really love this series, and every time a new one is coming out, I'm extremely excited. Okay, so let's go through. Now, with these books, we are kind of going now from 6 to 1 about how I feel. And some of you who've been around a long time, you probably already know this. Those of you who've watched my Mafia videos, you probably already know this. But I'm really excited to go through these with you and share. These are my very, very favorite of all time. So we're starting with the kind of like newest entries to the list, because again, this series isn't completed, and I want to know how I'll feel about it after doing many rereads. This is a series that I've only reread one of them so far. It still stood up, but again, it is currently coming out, and I am loving it very much, and I talk about this series all the time because I want this author to get more hype, and that is the Dark Heart series by Jagger Cole. So Jagger Cole, I can't say he was a new to me author because I have read one of his novellas years ago, which turned out to actually be only his like first or second book. I had read it, and then I never picked up this author again. Number one, because he didn't have any more books out yet, and number two, that book wasn't really my style. It was a stalker romance called Stalker Mine, and it was good, it was fun, but it was nothing compared to the quality that I've seen with this series. So I won't beat a dead horse because, again, I talk about this series all the time, but Deviant Hearts is the first book in the series. This one is an arranged marriage between the Irish and the Greek mafias. There aren't a ton of the Greek mafia, but there is some also in the Michelle Hurd series. One of the heroes is from the Greek mafia there, but this one is between Ares and Neve, and they have an arranged marriage, and that really kicks off this whole series, which I just love. So they're all very like brutal and real, and yes, they're very sexy. Like, sexy feelings are happening right away. But he also has so much action and just moves the story forward, and his heroines are so strong. Like, this man writes some of the strongest women that I've read in Mafia romance, particularly. It's not that they're perfect, it's not that they are the smartest all the time, but they're so cool and badass, and even when they're in a weaker position, they don't just roll over and take it. And I love that. I love it so much. It makes me so happy. So there's Deviant Hearts, there is Vicious Hearts, there is Sinful Hearts, Twisted Hearts, and Stolen Hearts. And then Reckless Hearts is coming out the 2nd of November. So I don't know if I'm getting an arc for that one, but either way, I'm going to be reading it as soon as it comes out, whether I have an arc or not. So we're reading it really soon. So yeah, I adore this series so far. And so again, it's not higher on this list because the other ones have all really stood the test of time thus far. So that's why this list ended up being a top 6 instead of a top 5, because I just feel like I have to add this. I have to add this on there into that top ones. Okay, so then I actually only own one of these books now, and I think that kind of tells you that this Mafia series used to be even higher on my favorites list, but due to the way the series was drug out and ended, it didn't quite stay there. So I actually sold off all the books in the series except the one that is my very favorite in the series, because I just didn't need to use up the shelf space on a series that I wasn't loving how it ended. So that's going to be the Filthy Feckers by Serena Ackroyd, or the 5 Points Mob series. So I really do love this series. Filthy, Filthy Rich, Filthy Dark, Filthy Sex, they were all very, very good books. But as I said, this series just kept being drug out, and it was so intertwined with so many other books by the author. The universe just became so huge. Now, there is one other author on this list that I also think their series went on too long, but she didn't even come close to how much Serena Ackroyd was beating a dead horse with this series. Now, I don't disagree that she always kind of had a plan. Like, I've done an interview with Serena. I think she is a sweet woman. She is so kind and sweet, and I love talking with her. But I think that her plans were always just so big that it was so hard to fit them into the series. And the way that it interlinked with not only her MC series, but then there was other side Mafia duet she was writing, and I just was so burned out. Like, by the time The Dawn and the Lady were coming out, I was like, can you just finish my Filthy Feckers? And then not only was there a final book, it was split into 2 parts, and I was pooped, y'all. I was pooped. So I've never finished this series, but the love that I have for Filthy, Filthy Rich, Filthy Dark, Filthy Sex are still there. I love this family, this Irish family, and so it's always going to be there. This one is an arranged marriage. It's a big age gap, and our hero doesn't want to be doing it, and the heroine is like traumatized and beaten by her family. And when our hero Owen first sees her, he knows that he's going to be taking care of her. And when he sees her at the altar with a black and blue eye and bruises that the makeup can't cover up, he's like, someone's going to fucking die. And I'm immediately there for the possessive level that this is. I'm immediately there. So this is still, even for all the other things that have weighed against this series for me, particularly the first 5-6 books in this series do still hold up as a favorite Mafia series for me. I just have not had the energy to finish it out with how convoluted and complicated that it got later on. But still highly love Filthy Rich, and that's why it has my number 5 spot on this list. All right, number 4. And again, these are ones that I have a bit fallen off with reading, where the author has gone with like other series that spinned off. But this series as a whole, I still really stand by. But I just grabbed my 2 favorite books from the series to show. But I do enjoy most all of them in the series. They were all very well loved. And that's The Mafia Wars by Maggie Cole. I discovered Maggie Cole around the same time that I was reading Sophie Lark for the first time and stuff like that. And I was sent Ruthless Stranger and Broken Fighter as like a PR gift to read. And I immediately fell in love with this series, and I read advanced copies of all the rest of the books in the series, and I loved it so much. And I think this series ended very strong. There was then a spin-off series that was Mafia Wars New York, which I didn't love as much, and now there's Mafia Wars Ireland, and I read the first book in that one, and I haven't continued with the books. But as a whole, Mafia Wars, I really enjoyed. And it begins with Ruthless Strangers, which is this couple meets in Vegas, has a 2-night stand where the heroine has never seen the hero's face because he is recognizable and he doesn't want to put her in danger, but she wants to have a 1-night stand, so she agrees to it with the blindfold, and they have this crazy hot night together, like hot, hot, hot. And then they both go back to their lives, which both happen to be in Chicago, and they end up in a business meeting the week after. I think it's just a week after. It might be a little longer. And he recognizes her, obviously, and then she recognizes his voice, which he hasn't forgotten at all. And now he's like, well, the reason I didn't want you to know who I was is that my family is in the mafia, and I wanted to protect you, but now it's too late. I've seen you. I have to have you. We're doing it. So that's how this series starts off. And then the first half of it is like the Ivanov family, and the second half of it is the O'Malley family, but we see they're very interconnected, so they're like all kind of together, right? Then book 5 in the series is Savage Tracker, and this is to date my favorite book by Maggie Cole. And this one is about Obrecht and Selena, and she is a traumatized woman. She has just escaped from an abusive marriage where she was a forced sex slave. This was not a consensual situation, and she'd been so mistreated, but she finally got the strength to leave, and she doesn't feel safe anywhere. And so her friend, who was her lawyer, Cora, she, gets her in with, the family that she's with, which is the Ivanovs. They own a lot of penthouses and buildings. They're in a lot of real estate. And so she's given an apartment in the same place that Obrecht is. So he's asked to kind of keep an eye on her and make sure she feels safe. And he notices these tendencies in her to be very submissive. And he also has been a top before. But he's never wanted to be in a committed relationship with a submissive because he doesn't want that responsibility. And he knows if you're going to be a dom, you need to be very responsible. And he doesn't want that type of pressure. But as these two start to fall for each other, he can't help it. So I love this book so much. It makes me so happy, but it was so emotional at the same time. So yeah, these books are still at the very top of my list. Okay, now we're getting hard, guys. Where are we going to go next? So let's go ahead and touch on who's number 3? Okay, so my number 3 Mafia series is Queens and Monsters by J.T. Geisinger. So this is a series that I have absolutely loved, and though this is technically a 6-star series for me, so it should be at the very tippy top. I love rereading. You'll see when you see what the others are. Like, it's a very tight game, y'all. It's a tight game. So I love this series so much. It starts with Ruthless Creatures. J.T. Geisinger just knocks it out of the park with me. Nothing I've read from her before or since has quite hit the same way that this series does, though I do still continue to give her chances, and I think she still writes some really fun, edgy-ish dark romances. I also just think that with Mafia is where she hit the sweet spot. When she is doing this Billionaire series that she's writing, I don't think that it fits the type of character she writes as well as the Mafia does. I just don't. But for me, I absolutely adore Ruthless Creatures. Then, of course, my favorite book. This is actually one that the binding is broken because I have reread this copy so many times. I've annotated this so many times that it literally is like broken binding. I have 2 other copies, so we're fine. But yeah, this is probably one of my favorite. Well, it is. It's in my top 4 Mafia romances ever. Outstanding of these series and stuff. It's Cardinal Urges. This is Declan and Sloane. Captor Captive, love it. Then we have Savage Hearts, which this is Sloane's sister Riley, and she gets up being kidnapped by Malik for revenge. And then there is Raina and Spider in Brutal Vows, which is also fantastic. So I love this series so much. Highly, highly recommend. The audiobooks are duet narration, and there's a full cast, and they're extra awesome. All right, then we have my second favorite Mafia author of all time. Now, this might shock some people. I know it shocks me, but I have very specifically 2 favorite Mafia books ever. And so even though as a whole, one of my favorite authors is this next author, I still can't usurp my 2 favorites because they are just ingrained in my soul. But my second favorite Mafia author ever, and just her whole collection of books, which, if you can't tell, is right behind my head, we have Sophie Lark. Okay, so I grabbed my 4, a few, I guess there's more too. There's Kingmaker ones as well. But these are the ones that weren't on this shelf, and I didn't want to tear that shelf apart to grab these. So yes, Sophie Lark, her her Mafia books are so good, we know. There is the Underworld series. This one starts with Ivan, and there are 8 books in this series. There are the Brutal Birthright series, which of course starts with Brutal Prince, which so many people have read and loved. Stolen Heir is another favorite in the series for me, as well as Broken Vow, which is the one that I have tattooed right under here, so I absolutely love it. And then I also love The Bully and The Spy. Those are all ones that I adore by her. I highly recommend you start with Brutal Prince if you want to start with her, and you can look up suggested reading orders from her. She has posted them many, many times. I've posted them many times. I have a full breakdown of hers right there. But there was just something special about these. There's something special about Sophie, and I just adore her Mafia series so much. So now, if you haven't guessed yet, very specifically for this last author I have to mention, which I realize I do still have 2 more honorable mentions, and we'll get to those after I do this one, because my brain, I was forgetting things. But my 2 favorite Mafia books ever are Twisted Emotions and Twisted Pride. So I have a complex relationship with Cora Riley. We know it. It's there. If you check out my very first Mafia rec video that I did, is where I walk through all of her books and my journey with reading those, and there's some few other authors in there as well. But these 2 books particularly rocked my world. They're shiny. I'll put them down. You guys know who I'm talking about. We're talking about these 2. I read my way through her series. I started back at the very beginning of the Born in Blood series, and I read, and they were fun. I still recommend those as a good starting Mafia series for people because they're just easy to get into. The books are quick. They're very easy to binge. The audiobooks are great. I was able to listen to those on Scribd at the time. So I blew through that series, and I could not wait to read this series because there was this hulking form of Raymond Falcone that just kept popping up and causing trouble for everyone. And when you read through her other series, you find out a bit about the events that will happen in this book, and it's just like, whoa, how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to deal with this? I don't know. But I mean, it starts with, there is a book 1 in this series that is Twisted Loyalties, but then there's Twisted Emotions and Twisted Pride. Now, like I will say for Sophie Lark, I do think that you can't just start with these 2. The reason why these 2 are my favorites, why they're my favorite Mafias of all time ever, is because I read the journey to get there. I read the frustrating Aria stuff. I read about Mateo. I read about all of them on the way here. And when I got to these couples, when I read Twisted Emotions and this arranged marriage and this woman who's been traumatized and is now with a man who she's sure is just going to ruin her, but instead he's gentle and patient with her. And then we read about Raymond Falcone, who kidnaps a woman on her wedding day and threatens to take her virginity and share it with her family. Like, who is this sick, twisted man? But the reason why I loved these so much is because I started at the beginning. So this is another case of like, sure, you can just start with Twisted Loyalties and read this series, but if you want the full feel that I get from these, you gotta start at the beginning of Cora Riley. Now, this is another case of I didn't love how the series ended. I personally think that it should have ended with Twisted Bonds, which is a book that comes after this one, because for Twisted Hearts and Twisted Cravings, I don't think she had a great feel on those characters, and the stories are just, they're not as enjoyable. The Sins of the Father series, which is the next generation, I've been so on and I haven't enjoyed it. Her new Mafia series she started, I'm interested where that goes. So again, I do have hit or miss with this author. So why, Jen, why do you like her more than those Sophie Lark books? Well, it just goes down to how much these books hit me and what they did to me when I read them and the emotions that it brought up, the twisted emotions it brought up, and how much I fell in love with these characters, and I have not been able to rip them from my blood since then. So yeah, I mean, Broken Vow, my favorite Sophie Lark, but like, I love those. But when we talk about as Mafia, not just how connected I am to the author and how much I love her, these books still always come to mind first when I think of that. So that is why Twisted Emotions and Twisted Pride are my favorite Mafia romances ever. And it still stands no matter what else that I've read. And even though they aren't perfect, I am a sentimental woman, and it comes to the fact that I hadn't read anything like them before I read it. And though I've read wilder and crazier shit since, there's just something about Nino and Ramo that had me. So I was just going to be wrapping it up with that, but when I was going through my list, I forgot about a couple books, and I got to mention these ones because I dragged them in here, so we will. So another honorable mention is Run, Posy, Run by Kate C. Wells. This is a second chance romance that I just adored so much. This is the special edition cover of this. This, I think, also has the, this is her, like, alternate cover that's available. I'll put a link to it if I can find it still. And it also has, like, a 5-year later like epilogue for them, which is really cute. So yeah, this one also has Dario as the hero, and he chases Posy away from him in the beginning because he thinks she's cheating on him, and then he immediately realizes, oh shit, I was wrong, but maybe now it's too late to get my woman back. I don't know what to do. So there's that, the poor idiot. And then, I can't believe I forgot to mention them, but another honorable mention, and it's an honorable mention because I know this series doesn't work for everyone. It also doesn't always work for me, because it's quite an adventure. But that is the San Mariano series. This is the Morelli family, and it begins with Accidental Witness. Then I don't really like another book until we have Resisting Mateo, which is book 5. So you can tell, like, there's a gap in the middle where I don't care about them so much. But I love San Mariano, and this is another series that I binged it in like 2 days because I had heard that there was such spoilery things happening. And even on some of her blurbs, like, she wouldn't even say what was happening in the series because she was like, you just have to read it. And it had me so intrigued. So this is an honorable mention. I don't recommend it to everyone, but I recommend it if you've read San Mariano before, so you understand that she's a twisted fuck. I personally say that Mateo was like her very rough blueprint for someone like Carter, even though they're completely different scenarios. But this series is whack. Like, it's so whack, but I loved it so much. So there we go. All right, there we go. Those are all of my favorite Mafias of all time currently, the 2023 version. So let me know some of your favorites. Let me know if you think I left some out, but I probably left them out on purpose or whatever. But this was a lot of pressure to make this video. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Bye.